When I was watching this, I was actually surprised that it was filmed in theaters. It wasn't until I started hearing the audio, I was like, okay, this is filmed in theaters. But it actually isn't too awful. Unfortunately, it always seems like the really crappy movies always get like the subpar, like decent bootleg quality, and the rest of them just get like the really good ones get really shitty bootleg quality. But hey, I'm gonna give this bootleg a 3 out of 10, mostly because the movie sucks and there's nothing else really to talk about besides how lame the movie is. Speaking about lame movies, 2009's Obsessed with Beyonce. The last time we talked about a thriller was 2014's No Good Deed, starring Idris Elba. And this movie also stars Idris Elba, but this time he is the protagonist. Or maybe I put that in quotation marks, so we'll get to that later. So basically, this movie is an hour and 49 minutes. And about an hour and 30 of that movie, about an hour and 30 minutes of this movie is filler. All right, this movie is filler. It is a really, really, really dull, like, thriller with Idris Elba and Ali Larter, who's, like, obsessed with Idris Elba. And really isn't explained why she's obsessed with him. She just sort of comes on to him. We don't know why. But Ali Larter, she loves her some Idris Elba. And she's obsessed with him or whatever. Now, Idris Elba is a married man, so, he can't be doing all the dirty stuff with Ellie Larter. He can't be doing any of that stuff. He's married to Beyonce, right? But then Beyonce, in the last third of this movie, the last 30 minutes of this film, the last act is just a big old fight scene out of nowhere with Beyonce and Ellie Larter. Basically, like I said, this whole movie is just filler till you get to the last, action set piece of this movie, where it's Beyonce fighting Ellie Larter. And that almost makes up the movie. It almost makes up for the waste of time that this film was, is that fight at the end. That's absolutely stupid as hell. It's like when you watch Family Guy and they have those fights where Peter's fighting a chicken. It's kind of like that. Like I said, it's just out of nowhere. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what it is? It's like this movie is Beyonce's version of Adaptation with Nicolas Cage. If you remember that movie, Nicolas Cage is trying to write this movie about the orchid thief, but he doesn't want to, he hits writer's block, and he's trying to write this third act, and he's like, well, I don't want to have a third act that has car chases and, shootouts and stuff. And then, of course, because the movie's meta, all that stuff happens. That's kind of what this is. It is exactly like that, just without all the meta comedy in it. This is literally something that Donald Kaufman would write and probably would be a big hit, which this movie was. At a $19 million budget, it somehow made $80 million. And I don't know how it made $80 million. That's quite a lot for a movie like this. Typically, a movie like this would make around 50, maybe $40 million tops. Not 80. $80 million is made for a very forgettable, boring as hell thriller that just isn't really that good. Bootleg itself, the bootleg itself is just the movie in non-anamorphic widescreen. And this is one of those two I had a hard time playing because I put this in my regular DVD player. It didn't read, so I put it in my 4K player and it actually read okay. So I don't know if this is just one of those where there's a file on a disc. I don't know how they did it. It really isn't. There's not much else to say besides that, besides how stupid the movie is itself. This is a movie I don't recommend, but this pops up on TV quite frequently, and with a lot of commercials in it, that's the only way I can recommend it. This is basically No Good Deed Part 2. I had more entrants. This movie has a lot of executive producers. I mean, it at least has 7 of them. And one of them is Magic Johnson, the basketball player. I don't know what brought him on board to produce something like this. I'd like to know. I would love to know what brought him on board for this film. I don't know if he was supposed to star in it and he dropped out. I don't know. This was another bootleg that was kind of a waste. So it might look ugly, but don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. Because the last bootleg I have here is actually a winner. And that bootleg is Red Fox Uncensored. Now, with this bootleg, I wasn't sure what it was because